and hello from Bahrain. So we are sitting here. This isn't a weather forecast, but we're sitting here in 34-degree heat, blue skies. And for those of you that don't know, Bahrain is an island in the middle of the Arabian Gulf. We're connected to Saudi by a bridge. We're about 50 minutes flight from Dubai, Qatar, Oman, and Kuwait. And we're right at the heart of what's going on in the MENA region. So today I want to chat with you about the MENA region, what's going on in terms of the marketplace, and what's going on in terms of the student recruitment market, which I know will be very important to many of you. So I'm just going to share my screen now and show you a few facts and figures about MENA and how we have found the market since we have been working in the different countries across MENA. So the MENA region is varying. Whenever people talk about the MENA region, very often there can be a bit of confusion about which countries that actually consists of. So here at Univer, what we do is we look at it in terms of 17 main countries that covers the MENA or MENAT market, if you include Turkey, which we do. So within that market, you've everywhere from Oman right down in the south of the region up to places like Morocco in North Africa, and in the Levant, Lebanon, Jordan, and that region. So what's actually going on in the higher education market here? So from those 17 countries, over 3 million students actually, it says here apply, but they apply and enroll in university each year. And those universities are local, they're regional in other countries in the region, and of course international. As many of you will know, there is a huge amount of students in this region that actually go and study outside of the region. And I'll come on and tell you a little bit more detail about that in a minute. 1,584 universities in the region as well in the Middle East. And they vary widely. One of the things that's very different about this region is the number of private universities that are actually based here. So unlike many other countries around the world, and we could take the UK as a good example of that, where the majority of universities are indeed government universities, or in many cases get some kind of government funding, here in this region, you'll find the actual majority are private universities with a great number of international branch campuses. So in somewhere like Dubai alone, which I'm sure many of you will know, 47 of their universities out of about 180 are actually international branch campuses, with universities ranging from the University of Wollongong to Middlesex University, to the Sorbonne, lots of international universities and great names in the market. And then finally in the schools market, which is so important when you're looking at the recruitment market, there's 12,370 private and government schools. Again, there's a huge raft of private schools here in the region. And that's mainly to do with the extent of the expat community. So what you may not know, that in somewhere like United Arab Emirates, there's more than 60% of the population are actually expats. So the normal Arab person who may send their student to government school And then you have a lot of expats who will send their children to private school, as indeed will a lot of Arabs. So how many go outside their own country? 800,000 is the latest data. And I would caution on that. Data in this region is very, very hard to find. And in fact, that's something that we are doing at Univer, and one of our missions is to get accurate annual data that we can forensically analyze to find out the trends in terms of market flow and in terms of subjects and what students actually want. But if you look at 800,000 as being a good figure, what is very interesting about this market is the growth. So at the moment, until 2025, the latest forecast is 5% compound annual growth. And with a market where 70% of the population are under 30, it's clear to see the potential in the Middle East market. And it's clear that actually this market is just growing and continues to grow. And to give you an idea of that, back in 2012, only 314,000 students actually studied outside their own country. And today, only 8 years later, that number surpasses 800,000. So as I said, one of the things that we at Univer try and do is we are trying to really keep a handle on what's going on in the region. It's a region that has been sometimes unknown, sometimes unexplored. And for most people, when they talk about the Middle East, they talk about Dubai. Because Dubai has emerged from a fishing village 35 years ago into what can only be described as the metropolis it is now. But the MENA region is just so much bigger than Dubai. In fact, we would advocate that countries like Turkey, Egypt, Morocco, Kuwait, and of course Saudi Arabia are some of the markets that you really should be looking at. So what we did at the beginning of August, we put out a student survey. We had a response rate of 2,000 students from 8 countries. And I just want to take you through some of the findings of that survey and what people had to say. So just to give you a little bit of a flavor, the majority of the students that you can see came from the UAE, but we also had Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Egypt very well up there. And one of the things that you have to remember also when we're looking at these numbers is to take into account that somewhere like Bahrain has a population of 1.5 million. So in comparison, it's actually one of the very small markets, as is Oman. So UAE, Saudi, Jordan, and Egypt, you would expect to have a much higher response rate. 55% of students who responded to our survey, of the 2,000 that responded, plan to study overseas. Now, what we have to do is we have to think about what that actually means. So they look at countries like the UK, the US, Australia, Canada, very, very popular market here, and then more emerging markets like Ireland and so on. But planning to study overseas can also mean that you have a student in Kuwait who plans to study in the Lebanon. So in the Lebanon, you have one of the oldest and one of the highest ranking universities in the region, in the American University of Beirut. And indeed, they will recruit a lot from the region. So looking at the top destinations for the students that responded to our survey, one of the things that I find most interesting about this, and having worked in the student recruitment market for over 30 years, one of the things that is absolutely the most fascinating about this is that from our students, the number one destination that they were looking for was the UK. 21% of students referred to the UK as being the place they wanted to study. And what we see is the US is at number 2 at 13%. Now, again, when you look at that, there has been a huge change. For years, the US was well in the number 1 slot, and it looked like no other country would actually take over that slot for the MENA student. However, there's been a marked decline over the last 4 years, which when you look at what students are telling us, there's 2 reasons for that. One is, unfortunately, something that at the moment we can't do anything about, but in 3 weeks' time may change, which is the Trump administration. So when the Trump administration put out a travel ban from some key countries, unfortunately, they were Muslim countries. And that has a knock-on effect. So what a government does, and what the message that a government does about making students welcome, really does resonate with them. So for any universities out there who are working with their governments or working in groups, NGO groups, it could be anything from Education New Zealand to Education Malaysia to UKI, really lobby to get the message out about your destination. But the second major issue for students in this region, and something that really drove us to launch Univer, was the lack of information. If you asked a student where they went for information, it was family, it was friends, it was recommendations. And that was because there was no real hub for information here in the region. People talk about MENA as one, but it's actually very individual. And each country has very different nuances on how they work. As we've mentioned before, if you go to somewhere like Dubai, you're in a huge international city, which is growing at a massive rate. If you go to Qatar, again, a massively rich country that's really progressing in things like fintech. But yet, if you go to somewhere like Jordan, you might find that it is not quite as advanced in terms of having information available to students. So the lifestyle and the culture of MENA really is an extremely important part of the student journey. So what tends to happen here is Friday, as you will know, is the start of the weekend here, and Friday is family day. So 3, 4, 5 years ago, the family, extended family, could be 16, 20, 30 people would be sitting around having a lovely long lunch. And I have been lucky enough to be invited to many Arab families to share their Friday lunch with them. And they would be talking about what the young people in the family are planning to do. And that's when they might recommend an institution or a subject. This resulted in the biggest dropout rate in the world. So 2 years ago, the dropout rate in MENA was actually 35%. We haven't got the most up-to-date figures, but the drive to get the right information to the right students is because previously they did not have access to that information. And what I find most interesting after living here in the region for 7 years is that we're seeing destinations like Ireland coming in now with 6%, Canada coming in with 7%, and countries like Germany rising in popularity. Now, when we look at the top subject areas, we see another change here. Now, for many of you, you will know that this year, medicine and healthcare have been by far the top. And what we do know is there's a huge influence because of COVID. We know that young people have looked and said, I want to help. We know that they've looked at medics and scientists working medicine around the world and thought that's the career for me. So 29% of students in the MENA region, the top subject of choice is medicine. But we also know that not everybody is qualified to get into a medical school, medical institution. And we can see also an emergence in things like healthcare sciences and in subjects like nursing. That's what they're looking for. Engineering has stayed relatively stable over the last decade. Engineering remains, and we think will remain very popular in this region. And a lot of that is to do with the oil and gas industry and with the construction industry. You travel anywhere within the region and you will see massive construction taking place. But also the oil and gas industry, which has been really why this region has grown to the extent that it has, is actually in the decline. So as many, again, as many as you will know, what this region is trying to do is massively diversify. So they're looking for a pipeline of young people who are educated and qualified in different subjects. And one of those subjects has to be computing. And again, when we talk about computing, it's a bit of a catch-all word, but it's things like AI, fintech, cybersecurity. That's the kind, robotics, that's the kind of subjects that our students, the Univer students that come to us, are telling us that they're interested in. And we're also seeing a huge rise in art and design. And a lot of that
I think we're having a, oh, sorry, Amanda. I think we're having a slight hiccup with your Wi-Fi over there. But I think, oh, you're all back now. I'm so sorry. I'll let you keep talking. I thought I was going to have to fill some gaps there. I'll hand back over to you.
Coffee, thank you. So just to go back to art and design, what we're seeing is the most recently in Saudi Arabia was the launch of a specific scholarship for students who would take art and design degrees overseas. So outside of Saudi, and the Saudi government are actually paying, I think somewhere in the region of $200 million to offer scholarships over the next few years to students who will go overseas to study art and design and then come back to Saudi to work and educate others in that subject area. Now, what influences a MENA student? So again, we talked about earlier on the fact that if you'd have asked 5 years ago, 4 years ago even, it would have been all about family and friends. That really was the biggest influence. And even today, if you drive around any of the countries, in August, you'll see billboards everywhere, outdoor advertising, promoting very much the local universities and country. A lot of the private universities here that were launched locally and regionally tend to look at advertising and marketing from a few years ago. And they've been very slow to adopt the digital environment. But that is happening. And one of, I think, the great changes that we've seen as a result of COVID is that that's accelerated the use of digital. We all know that digital technology in terms of learning and teaching and knowledge sharing is absolutely vital at the moment. And I think will continue to become a more critical part of higher education. But what also has happened is digital has taken over that student journey. So again, to give you an example, in this region at the moment, right now, there is no school visits. So even if a school is actually teaching face-to-face, and to be honest, most of them are hybrid, but even if they are teaching face-to-face, you physically as a university can't go into that school and present. It has to be done virtually. It has to be digital. And we have seen that translate into the numbers. So 73% of the students that responded to our survey said digital was their number one influence. And when we talk digital, we're talking anything that can be accessed on a device, mobile, iPads, laptops, desktops, anything that is on a device. So that's from portals, websites, that's from individual university websites, it's from social media, which is a massive influence in this region. And it's things like Instagram and Facebook, of course, through to peer-to-peer platforms like Unibuddy. They really are what is happening right now. A lot of people say digital is the future. I say digital is here. It's not the future. It's here right now. And we know that students across the region are using digital day in, day out. One of the things that I couldn't believe when I first arrived here was the number of mobile phones people had. And actually in Bahrain, where I live, there are 2.5 mobile phones for every member of the population. So you will frequently see people sitting in Starbucks with 3 mobile phones on their table. Now, why? I don't actually know, but it just shows you the importance of digital in the region. Family and friends are still important. Family is number one here, and absolutely, it really is important. But again, I would say that things like peer-to-peer are becoming just so vital to the journey. And that's obviously where Unibuddy and why we're all here, Unibuddy step in. But what we are seeing is that students here are just becoming more advanced in their knowledge, in their awareness of destinations, and awareness of the type of institution that might be the right fit for them. But the one area also we can't ignore is the school counsellor. In those private schools that we've talked about, where school fees could be as much as $50,000–$60,000 a year, school counsellors are key. The school counsellor's job is to spend their time with their grade 11, grade 12 and grade 13 students, helping and advising them on the right route for them, the right route to success. So our advice is, do not ignore those school counsellors. They can help you. They can really help to get your message over to the students. We asked students what their concerns were at the moment. And what was really clear, particularly in some of the comments that students put in the survey, was they really are very, very concerned about the future. COVID is really concerning them. And it's not whether, they're unfortunate enough to be, to catch the virus or, what that means. It's more to do with the effect on their family And it's more to do with the effect on their local economy. Students here are very bright. They're very aware. They're very aware of world events. And they really are some of the brightest students that I've ever come across in my career. And this is a major concern for them. And that then translates into the employability side of things. Employability in careers has always been an issue, but it is becoming something they're thinking more and more about. And I think that definitely when you're talking with these students, when you're communicating with these students, one of the messages has to be about how your university, about how your country has reacted to COVID, how you're working to keep people safe and secure, and what you believe your university believes will be the future in terms of employability. This piece really is what I think the heart of what we find out from our students. Simplicity, advice, speed, and less email. And again, very, very interesting. So let's just explore a little the simplicity, advice and speed aspect. It is very complicated. There are too many forms. At Univer, we have what we call Univer certified advisors. And these are individuals who speak to students all day, every day. Students from across the 17 countries that we work in the region. And the message that we receive time and time and time again is, I don't know what to do. It just seems there's too many forms to fill in. I don't know what the pathway is. I wish there was a step-to-step guide. I just don't know what to do. They need clear advice on what they need to do to make that application. And also post-application, what will then happen? And as I say, they're bright students. We're not talking about students who aren't worldly wise, aren't aware, but they just find the process complicated. So anything whereby you have common applications, simple applications, really does help. The second area is advice. Time and time again, we hear from students and they say, why, when I speak to university, do they just tell me to go to their website? You know, they say, do they think we're stupid? We've gone to the website. That's why we want to speak to somebody at the university. We want to ask more questions. And although every university's website contains a raft of information that is so valuable for the student, often they just want to have a conversation. And whether that conversation is online, is through direct messaging, is on a virtual meeting or on the telephone, they often just want to talk to somebody. And again, that's where things like digital platforms like Unibuddy come into play, because what they're doing is that, you know, the students have the chance to talk directly to other students. Speed. This is, I don't know whether this is the same all year, all world round, but it's definitely in MENA. MENA students are impatient. I guess it's something to do with instant gratification, and it applies to most young people in the world now. They want the answers now. Here in this region, it's been one of the leaders in instant delivery. You can literally phone up, order a bottle of milk, and it will be at your doorstep within 5 minutes. Instant gratification, the one-click world, is what students want. And when people don't respond to them, when they don't answer the phone, as this particular student said, when they don't receive a response to a WhatsApp message, to a message on social media, or even an email, they just think, you're not interested, and they will go elsewhere. Instantaneous response is what's needed. And I would even go as far as to suggest that if you're not in a position to respond to students within the hour, that you need to look at that and need to look at that process. Finally, less emails. This isn't about receiving emails per se, but this is about students going on databases. When students connect with you and you take their data, and we all comply with GDPR and data protection laws worldwide, and even if a student opts in and then they start receiving mass emails, the students are telling us in MENA they don't want it. It's just cluttering up their inbox, they're not interested, and it's not doing the reputation of your university or college any good. It's not positive for your reputation. So again, for the MENA student, I can't speak about elsewhere, but for the MENA student, it's good to be mindful of how you're using their data and how you're communicating with them. So what has changed? We know on the subject level, medicine, computing, the arts are now emerging as really some key subjects that students in MENA are looking for. The other thing is reach. MENA is not the UAE. MENA is not Saudi. MENA is not Kuwait. MENA is 17 countries. And each of those 17 countries are very different, have very different processes, have very different cultures. But also each of those countries have students that want to know more. So don't ignore Saudi because it might be a more difficult market to work in. Don't ignore a country like Turkey or Morocco or Egypt. These are the countries that have students in mass quantities that want to study. In many cases, their local higher education provision just does not have the capacity to serve the number of students that actually want to go on to study. And the other thing that's changed, of course, is we launched Univer. Now, as they say, everywhere in the world, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So for the pleasure of listening to me, I just want to tell you a little bit about Univer. One of the first things I want to tell you, and actually you guys are the first to know, is that Univer are partnering with UniBuddy. So on our Univer platform, which is a platform that helps students, it's dedicated to MENA and helps students find the right information, is AI matched. So students will find the right fit for them, and also contains a common application which answers the question around about the fact that there's too many forms and too many processes and information. Univer answers that question and takes you through the process. We only launched Univer a year ago, and at this point right now, we have 20,000 students on our database from grade 12 and grade 13 who are looking for a program, a destination, and a university. As I said, we are absolutely thrilled to be partnering with UniBuddy. Universities that are already using Univer can now have their buddies on our site. And if they don't have a partnership with UniBuddy yet, they can also trial their buddies. So if anybody is out there that wants to talk to us about that, they can do that. Finally, finally, I just want to give you some tips for your recruitment roadmap. Digital first. Absolutely, far and away, the most important thing that you can do is focus your communications on digital. Think local. Don't think of MENA as one region which is the same. It's not. And, you know, if anybody does want to know about some of the countries and some of the more cultural nuances and, you know, just wants to chat, give us a call. We're here. We live here. We're from here. We are here working in this region. We're on the ground. We have teams in Jordan, we have teams in the UAE, and we have teams in Bahrain. So we are here in the region working with people every single day. So if you want to ask a question, it's fine. We're here. There is no problem with that at all. We'd happily share any of our knowledge. School counsellors, absolutely really important. Keep connecting, find ways of connecting. And again, if you need any help on that, let us know. Simplicity on your messaging. Make sure you're getting the right information out there. Arab students want to know, what is it like to live in a particular country and to study at a particular university. UniBuddy comes in with that, with the student buddies, but also the universities have a responsibility to make sure that they give students the right information. One area that we haven't covered so far is accreditation. This is a question that we get asked every single day. And that's because there are complex accreditation regulations across MENA. Again, if you're not sure, give us a call or email us or message us and we'll try and help. Or if we can't help, we'll point you in the right direction. But having the right accreditation is really important. And MENA students are very hot on this. And one of the reasons they're very hot in this is that there has been issues in the past where some universities haven't been accredited. A student has studied for 4 years, paid a lot of money out in tuition fee to find out that they have a worthless piece of paper at the end of it. So accreditation really is important. Advise the student. Give the student the help that they need. Again, it's something that I know you all do, but it's so important for the MENA student. And work with trusted partners. There's many different organizations across this region. Ministries of education in every country. In somewhere like the UAE, you've got the KHDA, and they're very, very involved. But there's also non-government bodies that you can work in. Go out into this market, explore who understands the market, who you can trust, and how you can work with them. One of the things that I'm really hot on and is vital in MENA is networking. At midnight, under normal circumstances, you can go out to any one of thousands of cafes and see people chatting. And that's how they network. That is how business is done. Very often, business isn't done inside an office. It's actually done over coffee in a very informal environment. And people here are very keen to introduce you. So you can build your network very, very quickly. Again, when I first arrived here, I was always very nervous. How was I going to build my network? I only actually came for 4 months and 7 years later, I'm still here. But actually, you know what? It wasn't hard because people are nice. People are friendly. They want to promote their country. They want to work with people from outside the country. So networking is pivotal. Destination, again, students want to know, what is it like to live? What is it like to study? Is it hard? Will I make friends? Is there Arab food locally? Is there somewhere where that I can go for daily prayers? They want to know that kind of information. They want to know, will they fit in? So having other, if you're on the Unibuddy site, for instance, having Arab buddies is a really good decision. Getting my words mixed up, but a really good decision for you. And finally, partner with Univer. We're here. We're leading in the region. We are building the fastest growing student recruitment community across 17 countries. We are talking direct to students every single day. And we want to work with you. We're working with over 180 universities across the world now. And those universities are local, they're regional, and they're international. We want to work with you guys. So if you want to follow us, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the usual social media, Boys in the Band. And then finally, if you want to contact us, you can go to our website, you can talk to us through email, or you can WhatsApp or contact us. And our information also is in the partner profiles, so you can go and chat. Some of the team are on there at the moment, so you can always go and chat if you're interested to find out more about MENA or indeed about Univer. So that's it from me. Poppy, if I can ask you to join us, if there's any questions, that would be great. And thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And thank you for that fantastic session. I've just been sat here, I couldn't leave my desk. I think the data insights that we had there really blew my mind. I mean, the milk delivery, and I think somebody else was saying about having petrol delivered to your door. It's incredible. Let me just hop onto the live chat. We have had some questions coming through for you. So the first one is from Laura, actually, in the Unibuddy team, who works with a lot of our partners here in the UK. She said, with regards to sending emails, she couldn't agree more with what you said, but in UK institutions, communication can still be quite email heavy. Do you have any top tips for how people can make sure those emails stand out, make those emails as engaging as possible for prospective students?
I think what we're seeing certainly in this region is a rise of instant messaging and the rise of WhatsApp. People here use WhatsApp, and the reason I think that they like that instant messaging is because they like the shortness of the content. You know, everywhere, as I say, I've been working in this sector for over 30 years now. And everywhere I go, there's always a university that is top in the world for something. There's always pictures of very shiny, happy students sitting on green grass with the sun shining, with their laptops open or on the phone or books, or looking lovely. And you know what? Students aren't stupid. They're past that. They want to know the real deal. And this is why, you know, we were so excited to partner with Unibuddy, because I just think having that peer-to-peer, having that ability to find out the real story is what students want. So when it comes to emails, keep it short, keep it simple, and have a call to action. What do you want the student to do? Do you want them to click on to go on to somewhere? Do you want them to reach out to you? Do you want them to watch a video, have a call to action, and make that call to action clear?
That's fantastic. I think, yeah, I think that there's some research actually that we're sharing later today. I believe natives are joining us, that 1 in 5 students don't feel represented by marketing. And I think you're right, having real students in your marketing, be that through peer-to-peer, through the Unibuddy Univer platform, or through kind of any means, you know, getting your student voices out there in blogs, sharing videos and content on your social, it's really important. I have got a question actually about Univer, which might be one for future Univer plans. But Jay has asked if you have a plan to kind of expand your service into masters and PhD programs, or if you're just going to be focusing on the bachelor's degree, foundation, diploma.
Yes, we are actually. We are in the autumn, which we're actually here in the autumn, although when I look outside and it's 35 degrees, it doesn't feel very autumnal. But yes, we are expanding into postgraduate in November and PhDs. It's very interesting in this region about the take up of masters programs. It's almost a rite of passage. More students take a master's program immediately after completing their undergraduate degree than anywhere else in the world in MENA. It's huge, huge, huge in terms of what students think is important. The thing to realize in this region is that education is seen as the greatest gift a parent can give their child. So although we see some great media coverage in young people driving around in Maseratis and Ferraris, and indeed there is many of those, actually where the money is invested, as far as parents are concerned, is in education. So they actively encourage their kids to go on from their bachelor's to go straight into a master's, and we will be doing that.
That's really useful. Thank you so much, Amanda. And I might try to squeeze in, oh gosh, so many questions coming through. I might have to let you hop back on with your colleagues to answer some of those questions. But one of them that's just come through from Yaya, which I love, is what are your biggest tips for students in the region who can't decide where to study?
That's really good. That's a really good question. As I mentioned before, we have advisors all over the region, and what those advisors do is they're local people working in region. Because I think the first thing is to understand the culture of the student that you're working with. Some students here are massively international. They might have gone to an international school. They might have traveled widely. Other students have not been out of their country. So the first thing to discover is not only which subject they're interested in, but to find out about the student themselves, to ask questions, to listen to them, to understand their fears and their worries. And then from there, to establish actually whether a city environment would be right for them, or whether a lovely green leafy campus would be good, somewhere by the beach. You know, I look at one of my favorite places, Bournemouth University, right on the beach, absolutely gorgeous. Or you can look at campuses, particularly in the UK, in Scotland, somewhere up in Aberdeen, which kind of gives you the best of both worlds. The other thing they always want to know is they want to know about the weather. So, and be honest, you can't say if they're coming from a country which has 300 days of sunshine a year that the weather's lovely if you're stuck on a rainy day in Manchester. So really from that point of view, that's how we help. We ask questions and we listen.
I love that. And you're right, the weather here is completely unpredictable. I think we've already gone from having a rainstorm in London this morning through to quite warm weather. I might even have to open a window. So I think, yeah, honesty is the best policy. And I guess your current students are really best placed to deliver that. But thank you so much, Amanda. That's all we've got time for today. So Amanda will be heading onto the live chat. Like she mentioned, if you head back to conference.unibuddy.com, you'll be able to chat to the Univer staff through their kind of buddy profile in the Our Partners section.